Good morning. It's good for, if it's good for the climate, it's good for the economy. If it's good for the climate, it's good for the economy. This is an expression which most large companies on the planet identify with. Networks, companies, everybody says if it's good for the climate, it's good for the economy. And I believe that we should go together over the pathway going from the historic formula, the climate is not our business, to if it's good for the climate, it's good for the economy, and which brings us to a positive logic. So we have moved along this pathway, and I would like to tell you about hybridization, because I believe that tomorrow, large companies have a role to play. Society will increasingly be something that companies take care of, and there will be hybridization taking place. 3 different directions to exemplify what I'm saying. And I'd like to show you that positive economy is only related with technology and innovation, but it's not sufficient. There's more to it than meets the eye. Even though we limit ourselves to technology, we probably will miss the target and will stumble along the way. 3 directions: technology, innovation, society, and Africa, energy. Technology, innovation. Lots of good news. Over the last few years, between 2008 and nowadays, the price of photovoltaic panels has decreased by 80%, and there'll be more. Ever since 2013, half of the new kilowatt hours on the planet will have been produced with low-carbon energy. Ever since 2015, half the investment for energy in the United States goes to solar energy. Nowadays, all the contributions made by countries for COP21 leads to an increase of temperature of 3 degrees. It's far too much, but it's the first time when the temperature increase has been measured so well, so accurately, and this provides a milestone. Now we know we have to do better than that. Last year, for the first time, we have seen the disconnection between the economic growth, 3% approximately on the world level, and carbon emission growth, 0%. In France, very soon, a solar power plant near Bordeaux will be providing energy, photovoltaic energy, cheaper than the energy produced with nuclear and power plants, for instance, and no subvention. So in the next 40 years, there will be more money invested in energy than over the last 400 years. This is good news. Investment has been reoriented, and this energy will be useful on all continents. Large companies have contributed and have taken their share. The solutions for tomorrow's world will come from the innovations found by the world of companies. So society is something that companies should take care of. They have understood the stakes at play, especially global warming, and therefore companies must do something. 3 important items. Large companies, because they have the capacity to do it, must resonate more with society, civil society, and its players. And by doing so, they should also drag with them all of their players. Schneider Electric gives back 60% of the turnover to the partners. 100,000 companies work with 30,000 companies work with Schneider. And also, we should go towards hybridization, new business models. Not just one isolated social business, something that creates the buzz. No, something much more widespread. The hybridization strategy should be implemented by more people. And finally, we should generate more dialogue with different stakeholders. And more stakeholders will want to enter the dialogue later. Second direction, the world. Well, the picture's not so nice. We talk about countries being indebted and that there are complex questions regarding democracy and solidarity also, not just indebtment. We see migrations, refugees, and how difficult it is for our societies to deal with the migration movements. But behind the indebtment, we also see population demographic changes. There will be more towns built in the next 20 years than have been ever since the mankind appeared. People start talking about smart cities, very highly technological cities where life will be more comfortable, where emissions will be decreased. But 2/3 of the new towns, the 600 biggest towns on the planet, will be built in developing countries. So that means also that favelas will develop, slums will develop in mature cities, in mature countries as well. If our societies are not fully aware of this, and if they lock positive economy simply in the world and realm of technology, the world we're going to inhabit will not be the one we wanted to create. And we will be disappointed. There will be disasters. And I'm absolutely convinced that large companies can make a difference. Climatic changes, poverty, pollution, these are problems that companies must address. Of course, they must transfer competences across the world, and they're used to accounting, so they must use their accounting skills to reduce the carbon print, and they have to innovate at the basis of the pyramid. Africa is our common destiny, because between us and Africa, there's the Mediterranean Sea. Africa could either help us grow or bury us, because millions of African men and women are migrating towards the north or the south. There will be 4 billion Africans in 2100. And a large part of the population is less than 25 years old. Half the active population in 30 years' time will come from Africa. So Africa, we must commit for Africa. 6% growth in average, with only 25% of people who have access to electrical power. So providing electrical power for Africa would be the biggest gift to help emancipate women, because obviously when there is no electrical power, women are suffering most. And providing electrical power is going to improve development and health. Our large companies have to play a role. We must go there, and we must take our smaller companies in our luggage with us to meet the challenge. If our companies don't understand this, if our companies don't commit themselves for the next 20 or 30 years, they probably will have missed something for themselves, but also for the world. I traveled in Africa, and I met lots of young people, and I've come to the conclusion that here in Europe, we live in the culture of ownership, although BlaBlaCar, carpooling this night has achieved a great success. But Africans are younger, they're more connected, they're not so wealthy, and they are going to invent a new economy where people don't own the objects but share them or use them or rent them. In Africa, this is going to be essential. What can our companies do? What can we do? Well, we can help them get their training. Schneider Electric, for instance, has contributed to the creation of an engineering school in Douala and maybe another one in Tanzania. So I think this is an obligation for us. We have to share our competence and our experience with them. Also, we must, in the African continent and elsewhere, but particularly in the African continent, we have to go towards hybridization. There are many associations, NGOs present in Africa, and they do understand why we have to go for new models, microcredits, micro companies, but also we must invent whole new models so that we can help the African continent develop and innovate. If you consider the natural resources held by Africa and also the human legacy, I believe that in the near future, on the short term, Africa will make a difference. So 3 directions: technology and innovation, society, Africa. 3 directions. And I'd be tempted to say that the large companies who are lucky enough to be present in the world of technologies across the world and new businesses will be able to connect with other kinds of organizations, NGOs, states, micro, very small companies, universities. So multinational companies, large companies must invent hybridized models. We don't want to create a divide between technology and real life, what really happens in people's lives. Technology will help us invent new models, and this is precisely what is going to provide mankind with a number of solutions to live when there will be 9 billion people on the planet. And the solar shift is the best news. To conclude, I tried to find a quote. Hybridization is something we experience on a daily life, between our life, personal life, and professional life. And I'm a chairman of an association for Scouts. And we were thinking about the future, 2025. And a young man said to me, I don't know what I will be in 10 years' time. My children will grow up, and I'd like to leave an earth for them where they can dream. And if we could see our future, we wouldn't be so frightened by our present time. So let's try and find the right route and move forward. And large companies need to be pushed in that direction, but they have to play a role. They have a vital role to play so that we all go in the same direction. Thank you.
Merci.